Our next speaker is Dennis Michael Lynch. Some of you may recognize the name Dennis. Dennis is a conservative commentator on Fox News, often, Kelly Files, also The Blaze. He's a serial entrepreneur, a strong advocate of free enterprise, which is something I know all of us in this room appreciate. Big supporter of veterans' rights. He had a father in Vietnam, and I think that's really helped him to get engaged and to understand some of the issues that our veterans face. And he's been active in the immigration war, 2012 film on immigration called They Come to America. So Dennis is pretty active, a lot of issues that are important to us. Please welcome Dennis Michael Lynch.
Good morning. I hit the button. Can you hear me? All right, good. Or is it good afternoon? I'd like to start by speaking as the son of a 1-9 Marine, a son of a 1-9 Marine who served in Vietnam and who earned a Purple Heart, who went through malaria, who had his best friend die in his arms on the battlefield, and who came home with PTSD and basically has not had a comfortable night of sleep in almost 50 years. I understand the service and the sacrifice that is put forward by the men and women of our military. And I understand that I would not have the freedom to speak here about the possibility of running for the highest office in the country if it were not for the veterans across this country and in this room. So if you are a veteran, I ask you to please stand up right now and let us welcome you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you. You are true heroes, and what you have done is what is called an act of love. So many of you are probably sitting here and say, wait a second, did he just say President 2016? Who is this guy? I get it. I'm not even a dark horse. I'm like a dark pony. Well, I already told you who my dad was and is. And my mom and dad, when they broke up, my mom had to go out and get a job waitressing. And she worked 16-hour days, 6 days a week. So this way, we wouldn't lose our home. And this way, I could continue with my Catholic education. It's that work ethic that I have today. And thank goodness she did what she did, because I wouldn't have met my wife. I met my wife on the first day of 9th grade. I went home, I said, Mom, I'm going to marry her. She looked at me, and I predicted it right. So later when I tell you I'm going to be the next president of the United States, don't deny me that. We have 4 beautiful children. My oldest is in college, so I understand college tuition. And my youngest is 6 years old, and every night I go through Common Core math homework, so don't tell me I don't understand Common Core. But over the course of my 27 years since I graduated high school, I've been an entrepreneur, and I've started 5 businesses from nothing but having a plan, a blueprint, and a whole bunch of determination. And over the course of that time, there have been about, and I say about because you know the press will kill me if I'm 2 numbers off, it's about 1,000 people have cashed a check with my name endorsed at the bottom. I don't think there's another politician that's going to be here the next 2 days that could say that sort of thing. I understand entrepreneurship. I also understand when I won Entrepreneur of the Year from Ernst & Young, they gave me the trophy, and I said, I have a problem with this trophy because it's singular, and my story is plural. Because an entrepreneur is only as good as his workers, his American workers. I understand this. I understand this as well as anybody in this country does. And so everything was going well for me until the tragic day of 9/11. I witnessed that day firsthand, not on television. I stood there looking like this as my fellow Americans jumped 80 stories. You don't forget something like that. And it changes your life, changes the direction of your life. And so I decided that I wanted to start making films. Not as a filmmaker, as somebody like maybe a Dinesh D'Souza or a Michael Moore, God forbid. But as a CEO who knows how to point out where the problems are and how it is that you solve them. And so I saw a man one day standing on the corner of a 7-Eleven holding a sign saying "Deport illegals." I drove past him a couple more times and I said, "What a nut." And then one day I pulled over, I said, "Let me talk to this nut." And he was anything but. What he was a hard-working American who had a contracting business, and he was doing well, and he was living the American dream, and he had 25 employees working for him. But then he pointed over to the 200 illegal aliens who were standing on the other side of the 7-Eleven and said, "These guys caused me to go out of business. And my other 25 employees, they're out of business. They have nothing." And he said, "You know what, Dennis? We're giving away our jobs. We're giving away our education. We're giving away driver's licenses and maybe citizenship as if it came out of a Cracker Jacks box. How dare we? Men and women are over right now fighting for us in Afghanistan and Iraq, and this is how we pay them back?" And so I said to him, "Well, what do you think about the border?" He says, "We got to close it up." He says, "Israel's surrounded by a wall, and even heaven's got a gate." Right? So this guy, this patriotic American, he's the one who got me into all of this. That's why I brought him here today. Where are you, Tommy? Stand up. So what I did was I drove the country. When I make my films, I don't fly. You can't see the country if you're flying. And you certainly can't see it if you're on a golf course. So I drive this country, and I go by rail because it gives me the opportunity to see what's going on in this country. It gave me the opportunity to go down to the border and see what's coming through. I've worked with the Border Patrol in the dead of night. I have caught the people that you're hearing about today that are 8 miles away from our southern border. I've caught the gang members and the people who are trying to come in here and do bad to this country. And it's just being let happen. That experience, and those experiences of the past 4 years, that's what's led me to this stage. A year ago, I gave you all my films. All my films are there for you. I hope you enjoy them. A year ago, I released a film called We Ride to D.C. And I wound up receiving a letter in the mail from a 72-year-old woman. And she wrote in it that she's seen everything in her lifetime and that she hasn't seen a real leader since President Ronald Reagan. And she said, "You remind me of him, and I want you to consider running for president." Now, when you get a letter like that, you sort of smile. You read it twice, and then you put it off to the side. And then a week later, I received more letters of the same. This time I took them into my wife, and I said, "Sweetheart, look at this. JFK, Ronald Reagan, run for president." She said, "That's great. You know, the lawn needs to be cut." And so that's the way it stayed until I wound up receiving the 2,000th letter and the stuff that came in through social media. And so I started to say to myself, well, is there maybe more that I could do for my country? Are these people seeing something that I never even thought of? And so I traveled around 26 cities. And every time, whether it was a GOP meeting or it was a Tea Party meeting or something for veterans, everybody came up to me and said the same thing that was in that letter. You need to think about running for president. We are so thirsty for a fresh face with fresh ideas. Somebody who's going to fight for the American people, not the lobbyists. Somebody who doesn't come with sound bites, but who comes with real plans to solve the problems we have. Somebody with the sort of experience that you have. They say, "Yeah, I know you've never wrote 3,000 pages of legislation and then said, it's a bad deal, and threw it away. And we know you've never given in-state tuition, but we know that you create jobs, and we know that you care, and we know that you know the border and immigration and how to solve those problems. We want you to consider this." And so I ended my city tours, my tours around the cities, in Phoenix. 800 people. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to explore a run for president. And the place went nuts. And when I walked off the stage, there were 5 guys there who worked at the theater. And they said, we're all Democrats, and we're going to change over to Republican if you run. Thank you. When I say explore president, a run for president, I don't mean go out and meet with billion-dollar donors. That isn't my idea of exploring the presidency. What I needed to do was go home and talk to my family and say, do we want to enter the cesspool that has become D.C.? Oh, listen, I'm not politically correct, and I'm not going to hold anything back. You know what you're getting when I talk, okay? Okay. And at first, the answer was no, we don't want it. But then we started looking at our children and the future that they were looking at, and it was dismal. And then we started thinking about how much we care and love our country. And so Megyn Kelly, who I've been on her show a bunch of times, she saw that Phoenix video. And by the way, you've got it in your DVD case. Who gives away more free stuff than me? Well, Obama, right? so hey, I just came up with that 2 seconds ago. So anyway, Megyn invited me on, and she said, Dennis, what are you thinking about? How are you going to run for the presidency when you don't have any support from the party? You're not going to get party money. And I said, Megyn, I want to run for the presidency because I'm in love with my country. I want to protect my children, and I want to protect your children if they were my own. I want to protect American jobs and health and safety, and I want to bring back the American spirit. And I know I've got the ability to do that. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. And you know what? Do you remember this guy named Dave Bratt, who everybody told him he was a dark horse too and that he was crazy? He was going to try to take on one of the most powerful men in D.C. who had a chest of $5.5 million for a campaign, and Dave Bratt had less than $250,000. Ask Eric Cantor today if Dave Bratt is crazy. No, Dave Bratt has his job. This election isn't about money. It's about messaging. And let me be straight with you. If it is about money, you better get ready to start saying President Clinton. No joke. This is about messaging. This is about telling the American people what conservative values can do for them. Conservative values are great. We just haven't had the right person selling it. We haven't had the right person to say, listen, I'm the poster child of conservative values. If you just put down your guard for a second and start with the right versus the left, and let's get into right versus wrong. Let's forget about 1% and 9% and 47%. Let's just think about one country. Because that's how teams go from being mediocre to championship teams. I know this. I've coached football and taken a 5-5 team and brought them up to 8-2, 9-1. I handed them back to the other guy and it went 5-5 with the same kids. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because I got the most out of those children. They were champions, but nobody was telling them that they were champions. Nobody was letting the inside come out. That's where America is right now. And so instead of just giving you sound bites and how fantastic things could be with a President Lynch, I'm going to give you something nobody ever gives you for the rest of the 17 minutes I have. I might stretch to 19. I'm strong. I have been exploring this for 6 months. My exploration was all about what I could come up with in terms of a plan that would make your life better, that would make your American experience amazing. What I could do to revive this country, because this country doesn't need to be saved. Nobody in this room right now needs to be saved. But our country needs to be revived. It needs a spark, and the spark is you. It just needs somebody to help light that fire. And so I've come up with a 4-point plan in the same way that I would come up with a plan if I was starting one of my businesses. When you start a business, if we were going to start a business right now called New Hampshire Widgets, we'd come up with all the line items that need to be addressed. But at the end of the day, we don't buy the forklift until we knock out the warehouse and we get the employees. And so yes, we need to fix the VA, and boy, would I do that. And yes, Common Core needs to be thrown out. But right now, to get this country back on track, there are 4 things we need. And that's what my plan is all about. And I'm going to roll it all out over the next 30 days. But I'm going to give you some highlights now. Number 1 is jobs. I travel this country by the car. I've been in your city. I go down Main Street. What a beautiful place. It's a shame half the stores are closed for rent. Nobody going to even think about renting them. Why? Because this country was built on entrepreneurship. And yet the government and the Obama administration and all the politicians from both sides put handcuffs on entrepreneurs. This isn't something I read and my speech maker didn't say this, Dennis, give him this. This is what I know. I feel it. I feel their pain. I've lived it for 27 years. So in my plan, I take away those unnecessary regulations, which keep entrepreneurs from growing. Yeah. And I start with Obamacare's business mandate. The business mandate goes against the grain in terms of an entrepreneur's wiring. An entrepreneur doesn't say, let me get to 49 people and stop. He says, let me get to 49 people and get to 110. But what we've done is make him hit the brakes. And the truth of the matter is that 2/3 of the jobs in this country are created by entrepreneurs, not by governors, not by presidents, by entrepreneurs. And they just need the support of a president and the government. Another way of igniting this economy in a way that you've never seen before is creating a nice flat tax, an 18% flat tax. And the details within my flat tax, they make it fair for everybody. The middle income earners, the people at the bottom, the charities won't have to worry about a thing. And you'll see as I give you the details, you're going to love it. Those 2 things right there, boom, we're off to the races. And then we move in, as I mentioned about with health. I'll say it for you. Obamacare sucks. It sucks. I know this not because somebody told me to say it. I know this because I'm one of the statistics. I lost my health insurance because of Obamacare. But let's be honest, because it's a great GOP talking point, Obamacare sucks. But we need more than that. We need a plan for people to feel better about what we can do. Because honestly, what we had before Obamacare, that sucked too. Okay? When your health insurance premiums cost the amount of a mortgage, that's no good. People can't live with like that. So my plan would be to open it up, put the power back in the consumer. Make these insurance companies fight for your business and be competitive by letting it go across state lines. Now, I know this is sort of the stuff that you're going to hear from the other guys as well. And that means it's a good plan, because I've endorsed it. But the next part is your safety. Your safety. In my pocket is a cross from September 11th. It's from the Trade Center, made from the steel. A mother who lost her fireman's son gave this to me. It was her only memento from that day. She said, Dennis, I'm going to give this to you instead of keeping it on my bedpost, because you're the one guy who puts his money where his mouth is. And you have 3,000 angels protecting you for as long as you promise to do everything you can to make sure this never happens again. And folks, based on my travels around the country, I just came back a couple of weeks ago by myself coming from the northern border between New York and Canada, watching trucks cross over from Canada into New York with nobody stopping them, no border patrol. I've been down on that border, and I've been warning on Fox News and every other place that will have me on about what's happening on our southern border. And now you're finally hearing that ISIS has a camp 8 miles out. I know this is going to sound a little New York tough, but that's who I am. If I were the commander-in-chief, based on the conversations I've had with the men and women of our military today who want to go in and do the job right and do it now, I will wipe ISIS off the face of the earth. It's a good soundbite and some red meat for you, but it means something to me. It means something to me because I can never look up again and see people jump. Imagine what that means. Imagine what that takes for somebody to literally jump out of a window. Do you understand the hatred that these people have for us and for Israel and for anybody who doesn't believe like they do? They're going to stop at nothing until you are dead. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. And you know what? Where I come from in New York, you don't turn your back on your best friends. The first day that I would be in that Oval Office, I'd pick up that phone and I'd say, Bibi, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry that you were treated the way you were treated by the Obama administration. But let me tell you something. There's a new guy in town, and he believes that you always protect your best friend. You're never going to have to look over your shoulder again because I'm going to be standing with you hand in hand. And anybody who wants to try to even think about removing you from the face of the earth is going to have to deal with us. Now, at the same time, I believe in reaching your hand out to the world and saying to people, hey, let's make a better America, let's make a better country, let's make a better world, let's be friends, let's do things together. But if that's not accepted, then you don't want to be our enemy. And that message is going to be sent loud and clear. There are no negotiations with countries who love to see terrorism run wild. And we get this country back to being the strong country that sends a message out to the world that says we protect U.S. jobs, we protect U.S. lives. And so now the next part of your safety comes down with illegal immigration down at the border. You are going to hear for the next 2 days, we need to secure the border. I believe in secure borders. Baloney. We've been hearing that for 30 years. And yet it never gets done. And if they even dare to give you any detail to their plan, it's going to include bigger fences and more boots and more technology. And you're going to see when you watch those DVDs at home, that's not going to work. Because there's absolutely no will to stop these people. There's only one way to secure the border, and I know how. You have to remove the incentive to come here illegally. That secures your border. And so how do you do that? How do you really do that once and for all? You hold the employers accountable who hire these people, who cheat their fellow entrepreneurs. And you find them, and if they do it again, you prosecute them until they understand you're not joking around anymore. And you watch. This all connects to this big, huge plan that I've given you. What happens is those people start to go home. The illegal aliens. And what happens is jobs start to open, and my buddy Tom can start putting windows in your house again. And more money now is funneling into the economy. And the American spirit starts to revive itself. And then as far as the people who are here illegally, here's another word I swear to you you're not going to hear all weekend long, but right now, they're going home. Mass deportation. In the most humane way possible. No. I will give them 90 days to get their affairs in order, to take all the money that they've made because they've worked hard for it, and they need to go home and invest in their own country. Build a home, start a business. But basically, like Tom said, you're not going to get a job and you're not going to get citizenship like it comes out of a Cracker Jacks box. And that message is going to get sent across the world. People are going to realize that America is no longer going to ignore its immigration laws. And listen, don't tell me it's impossible to do. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. I don't need a pen. I don't need a phone. And I don't need Congress. All I have to do is enforce the laws on the books. And that's what I would do. And then I tail in because I'm given the 2-minute warning, which is really 4 minutes. The American spirit. As I've driven around this country And I've seen people who look just like you standing on a corner holding up a "I need work" sign. Or as I've gone into South Chicago by myself without a gun and had them look at me like, I didn't want to buy drugs. I had no drugs to sell. I wasn't looking to hurt anybody. A guy came up to me and said, "What are you doing here, man?" I said, "I want to know what I could do to help you. Why is South Chicago like this? Why is Detroit like this? Why is this country starting to look like Chicago?" And he said, because 10% of our population, the gang members, the drug dealers, they're causing all the problems. And good people like me, I have to mow my lawn between 6 a.m. and 1 p.m., and then I got to go in the house, or else I'm going to wind up getting hit with a drive-by. And I don't get it. We can blow up a hotel room in Syria and know who's in the room, but we can't get rid of 10% of the thugs? What entrepreneur would want to open up a business here in South Chicago? And you're questioning why it is that I'm on welfare? There's no job for me. I'm in survival mode. Do you know how many good people I've met across this country? I don't care if they're Latino, white, black, polka dotted, it doesn't matter. They look at me and say, I've got no opportunities. Folks, I'd like to tell you more, but I'm out of time. I ask you to go to dml2016.com. I know it's a long shot, but I launched a PAC today, DML for America. And for the next 30 days, I'm going to go out and raise money and give this plan to people. And as long as I'm given the opportunity to get up here with these other great men and Carly, who will be here, I think you'll start to see American people liking what it is I have to say. There's got to be some reason why when Megan ran that poll, after I got off her show, would you vote for Dennis Michael Lynch if he ran in 2016, that more than 85% said yes. There's something there. I want to explore it. I hope you will too. God bless you. God bless America. And please don't forget, nobody will ever fight harder for you than me. Thank you very much.
Some wonderful standing ovation.